Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, January 26th, 2021, and today we are going to be talking about former President Donald Trump and his new targets entering into the new political era. You know, Donald Trump is someone who is now a private citizen, so he has the ability to do practically whatever he wants in terms of campaigning. He no longer has the responsibility of the White House. And I've seen some people actually critique the covering of Donald Trump as a private citizen, but you can't deny, even if you may not support President Trump or you think that it's just giving him free press, which in a way I do think so, but also this is something that, this is a person who controls a very significant portion of the American electorate. I mean, his grip has not dissolved. His impact on American politics will be long-standing. We are talking about this president having implications for the next few decades, around half a century, and possibly even further than that. President Trump completely rewrote the American standard for what it means to be president of the United States, what it means to be a major political figure in the United States. And he, like no other Republican, maybe comparable to Ronald Reagan, has built a very large and very loyal following that will follow him to the end, will follow him to any standard, will vote for any candidate he endorses. And I think that is something that cannot be understated, because when Donald Trump puts his foot down in certain races and when he endorses primary opposition, there are times where he falters, but in the majority of the time, we're talking 80-90% of the time, Donald Trump succeeds in primarying certain Republicans who he believes are not loyal to him or loyal to the Trump wing of the Republican Party. So I completely understand how some people may be upset that Donald Trump still is getting press coverage from the New York Times, from CNN, Fox News, including my own political channel. But also, he's someone that is in politics. I will have to cover him because he has a very large impact on the American electorate, and what he is aiming to do is going to definitely hurt a number of Republicans. And I think it's worth noting that his impact still has not gone away, even though he is no longer president of the United States. He's built such a large following that, what he wants to do is going to be just going to be there. I mean, he's going to be able to do what he wants to now that he has no limitations, and he's already started. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, someone who served in the Trump administration for a pretty significant period of time. I mean, she was someone who was definitely disliked by many members of the American media. She was definitely targeting a lot of mainstream media sources, citing them as, fake news and completely disregarding a lot of what they did. And she pretty much not necessarily rose to popularity, but rose to political relevance due to Donald Trump. She had always been a very prominent Republican name, but Donald Trump really put her, the spotlight on her, the Trump White House more so. And she is now running for governor in the state of Arkansas, and he has endorsed her. And she is probably going to waltz into the primary and come ahead, even though the state lieutenant governor is running. I mean, we have possibilities of statewide officials in Arkansas that could run, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders is someone who has the history, especially with just her family ties, but also being so close to Donald Trump, already having the Trump endorsement. That's something that could really carry her in a state like Arkansas that overwhelmingly voted for President Trump. In fact, we're actually going to take a look. Not here, that's 2016. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the 2020 presidential results just to outline, which states Donald Trump is trying to make an impact in, and talk about, this margin of victory for Donald Trump cannot be understated. Donald Trump did so well in Arkansas, in fact, improved off his 2016 margin of victory, one of the very few states that improved for Donald Trump relative to 2016. So it's not just Arkansas. Donald Trump has pretty much made it a point to note that he is going to target a number of rhinos. If you don't know what rhino stands for, it stands for Republican in name only. They call them rhinos because these are people who they believe are not truly Republicans, but rather just affiliate that way. And this has definitely been a name that's been flung around to many Republicans in the past. It's been around for decades. It's not a new term. Rhino is something that has been around for a very long period of time, and many members of the American media, American political, Republican Party more so, have used this to primary certain opponents to say that they aren't truly a representative of the American electorate or a representative of Republican policies. So what I see here, what I see in the new Donald Trump type of wave into this new era, this new Trump wing of the Republican Party, what he's doing is revamping the Republican Party to his liking. He's taking the old and he's, inputting a new type of American electorate that we normally or a Republican Party that we normally would not see. But now that Donald Trump is out, he has a lot of free will. He has the ability to do whatever he wants, and he's going to take advantage of that. So the first thing we can talk about is the state of Ohio. Now, Ohio, I actually mentioned in a video a few days ago. You can go ahead and check that out at the top right corner of the screen. But that was a video where we talked about Rob Portman retiring. It actually might have been yesterday or the day before. My sense of time is completely thrown off over the past few months. But pretty much so far, Ohio is a retirement in the United States Senate in the 2022 Senate election. The governorship is probably going to be contested. It looks here like a Trump-aligned primary challenger is going to go against Mike DeWine. Mike DeWine was praised by many members of the left wing because of his immediate COVID response, but many Republicans do think that he's taking things too far in terms of regulation, so it is possible that he faces a pretty significant primary opposition, especially from someone who could be immediately backed by Donald Trump. But also, Donald Trump won the state of Ohio in 2020, so he doesn't necessarily have a vendetta against Mike DeWine, but also if someone who aligns more with Trump, who would be a spokesperson for Trump rather than someone who just voted for him, but not necessarily always a spokesperson, Donald Trump is definitely going to choose that complete loyal follower in the primary, and he could have a very large impact on the state. He won the state despite it being a swing state. He won it by 8 percentage points. 8 percentage points. I mean, it's not exactly, a state that Democrats should discount by any means, but also one should point out the Democrats did not perform nearly as well here as they did in surrounding states. But let's go ahead and move past that. Let's talk about some serious things besides Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's running for Arkansas governor. That makes sense. But now that we have the open Senate race in 2022 in Ohio, I want to actually show you how well Rob Portman did in 2016. That's why the 2016 map is open. He won by 21 percentage points, much better than Donald Trump did. Donald Trump won the state by 8 points in 2016 as well. So a super significant improvement, but he's leaving. He's saying, it's too polarized in America, so I'm no longer going to be representing the home state of Ohio. Well, that opens the possibility for a Democrat to run in Ohio and possibly win this Senate race. But it looks as if Donald Trump is going to put his foot down in this race and endorse Representative Jim Jordan. I mean, Jim Jordan is someone who has risen to popularity amongst Donald Trump, someone who definitely could go ahead and win in the Senate race if he ends up nominated. He could also lose. I think he's definitely the Democrats' best chance of winning if he's nominated, just because his entire political stances so far have just been pro-Trump. It's exactly what Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue did, but the problem is Ohio voted for Trump more in 2016 than Georgia did in 2016. Despite Ohio flipping from Obama, it swung by a very large amount, 11 points from 2012. Georgia, however, swung to the Democrats by around 4 points. So Georgia and Ohio, while normally voting opposite directions, this election, Georgia went blue, Ohio went red. And I think, even though Jim Jordan may not necessarily be the best Republican candidate who could run, just because his entire campaign would be pro-Trump, just the same way it was for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, and we all saw how that turned out for them, Ohio is not as competitive as Georgia. It's not as, much of a swing state as Georgia. And I know that would have been crazy to say 4 years ago, but that's our new political reality, largely due to Donald Trump. So if he decides to endorse Jim Jordan, I think Jim Jordan will end up being the nominee, and I think he will start out with the advantage. in the state of Ohio. But we've seen President Trump discuss the possibility of forming a third party. You can also check that out at the top right corner of the screen. Donald Trump discussed forming a third party, the Patriot Party, a party that would be loyal to him and loyal to his ideology. But he decided against that. It was very obvious the Democrats were going to be able to take this and turn it into a Democratic supermajority in the Senate, in the House, and win landslide elections on the presidential level. But President Trump has started raising money. He has $70 million in his PAC, Save America, the Save America Fund. I've seen that from President Trump multiple times. And he's going to use that to primary these House members who voted against him, to primary these governors or win governor races that are normally competitive and put in a Trump nominee because some of these governors said they were going to uphold the certification in their states. Brian Kemp, Doug Ducey. Some of these Senate races, President Trump wants to put his foot down to actually have an impact, to have a voice in the United States Senate that would be directly elected as a result of his support, his $70 million. And this starts actually with primarying the House Republicans who voted against him. Now, obviously, all 10 are going to be targeted, but President Trump has been particularly angry, according to the New York Times, with a few House of Representatives members. These aren't too surprising. I mean, we're talking about representatives that are Republicans that voted to impeach President Trump. Anthony Gonzalez of Ohio, he represents the 16th district in that state. Fred Upton of Michigan represents the 6th district in Michigan. And then Liz Cheney, who also voted to impeach him, who is also the only House leader on the Republican side that voted to impeach President Trump. She's from Wyoming at large. So these three representatives are ones that are going to be targeted by President Trump. I don't think it's something that will necessarily work unless he's able to really focus a lot of his efforts on some of these races. But when you're looking at these districts, a lot of the times the incumbents win by solid amounts because they are liked by their constituents, and they just repeat the cycle. Let me go ahead and find the 6th district right here. Fred Upton, he didn't win by the largest amount, but I also think that if we're talking about a primary, I think a lot of these representatives can still hold off, because in House races, the factor of the incumbency is everything, and if President Trump can't really focus on all 10 equally, I think some will lose, some will win their primaries. I think Fred Upton has a good chance of winning, but there's always the possibility that he's losing now that he's going to be prime target number 1, 2, and 3 for the not necessarily the Republican Party, more so for Donald Trump. Anthony Gonzalez in Ohio. Let's go ahead and find the 16th district. I'm sorry, I don't have the districts memorized where they are, so I'm going to go ahead and try to find it quickly. But he is on Donald Trump's list now to be targeted, to potentially be primaried because of his vote to impeach President Trump. So I don't know where exactly I'm going to find it. It should be around here. I guess I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, but I just want to point out, when you're talking about who Trump is going to be targeting, it's very obvious that he doesn't like the people that are voting to impeach him, despite them being from the same political party. So here we have it. Anthony Gonzalez, he is the incumbent. He won by a very considerable amount. That also is a good sign for a future primary. But also, Donald Trump definitely won here by a pretty considerable amount as well. It's possible he loses, but I would say a lot of these incumbents start out with the advantage. And the final race that is being heavily targeted in the House so far, at least, there's always the possibility it expands, is Liz Cheney from Wyoming. I think she could face a very real primary opposition, given that this is an entire state. It only has one congressional district. This is an entire state. The impact will be much easier. And also, the airwaves in Wyoming, and this at large would be much cheaper than a couple of other districts. So I think that Liz Cheney definitely will get a run for her money, but she's also someone who's a very well and respected name in Wyoming. She's someone who is now may be unpopular amongst the Make America Great Again wing of the Republican Party, but she's still someone who's in a Republican leadership and someone who could actually do well in a primary. So they're all, I would say, keep the advantage. I think that they all would start out with the benefit of the doubt that they would win their primary, but now this is actually in discussion. But it's not just House of Representatives members. We talked about how he was going to hit some of these governors. Brian Kemp seems to be the person that is described as the deepest hostility reserved for Governor Brian Kemp. He upheld the election results in the state of Georgia. He said, Donald Trump did not win this state. Brad Raffensperger said the same exact thing. Despite Donald Trump making baseless claims of election fraud, it didn't change the outcome of the results. I mean, Brian Kemp technically could have. He technically could have changed the outcome of the election if he chose to not certify the results or certify them for Donald Trump. But obviously that would be denying the 2.47 million voters that voted for Joe Biden from a fair election victory in the state of Georgia. You see, Donald Trump never provided proof of election fraud. Whenever he went to court, he lost for a reason. He lost at the Supreme Court for a reason. It wasn't because all of these Trump-appointed justices didn't like Donald Trump. It's because there was no proof that was ever found. There was never anything that was proven. Now, the Dominion voting system is suing members of the Trump legal team because they lied. They lied. Plainly put, they lied, and they completely misled the American people. Otherwise, Donald Trump would be president today. But obviously, that isn't the case. But Brian Kemp seems to be one of the main targets for Donald Trump, and this actually benefits Democrats. This benefits Democrats because if he pushes Doug Collins to run, that will fracture the GOP, or even if he pushes someone such as Marjorie Taylor Greene, whoever it is, who's ever the Trump backer, that will fracture the GOP in this state entering into the governor election in the regular election. And, while party reconciliation definitely occurs, it's going to be very difficult when one side of the political party believes Brian Kemp to be just as bad as Democrats. Donald Trump said that himself. He said, who needs Democrats when you have Republicans like Brian Kemp, equating the two. It's going to be very difficult for you to convince a lot of these Trump supporters to vote for Brian Kemp, or at least just not leave the ballot blank, even though they may not want to lose the governorship, and a lot of them will end up voting in self-interest. There's still going to be very narrow amounts that decide to not vote, the same way they did in the runoff elections. And while in more conservative states that may not matter, in states that come down to 12,000 votes out of 5 million, like Georgia did on the presidential level, every vote matters. And this subtle, small, maybe small, possibly bigger crack in the GOP in Georgia definitely will damage them in the governor election. But it also is President Trump's main target. He's considering asking Doug Collins to either run in the Senate election against Raphael Warnock or run in this governor election. Both of them, I think, obviously Donald Trump will immediately endorse him, but I think that that's also something that the Republican Party would have to realize, if Doug Collins runs against Brian Kemp, it's probably going to doom both of them in the general election. But also, I don't think Doug Collins would be the immediate favorite in the Senate election either. So we mentioned Representative Liz Cheney, and we also have members from outside PACs, such as the Republican Accountability Project, that says they were going to, her and her colleagues plan to raise and spend $50 million to defend the 10 pro-impeachment House Republicans in primary contests and attack those who voted to the Electoral College results after the January 6th riot at the Capitol. This group would aim to defeat Mr. Jordan in the Ohio Senate primary if he runs against an establishment-minded Republican. So it looks as if there are going to be people that want to get rid of these primary challengers from Donald Trump to outright deny them. So while Donald Trump may have $70 million, it looks as if opposition parties are going to end up spending the same amount of money to defend these Republicans and defend those who are anti-Trump. Because, they may be Republicans, Republican Accountability Project, they may be Republicans, and they are going to end up helping Republicans, but they still do not like Donald Trump, so they're going to end up raising money to oppose these primary oppositions. And, of course, we mentioned Sarah Huckabee Sanders, but there's also some rumors now that we could see Ivanka and Laura Trump running for Senate. Ivanka in Florida, Laura in North Carolina. I don't think that they're going to necessarily happen immediately, but it's always a possibility. They could be pushed by members of the right wing. And the final race that's going to be targeted by Donald Trump is the North Carolina Senate race. This is a Senate race that retiring incumbent Richard Burr just won back in 2016. It's going to be targeted by Democrats. Jeff Jackson today announced that he is running for Senate in the state of North Carolina. So definitely a target for the Democratic Party. They want to win North Carolina in 2022. Donald Trump seems to be already announcing that he's going to put his foot down and try to sway the outcome of the results in terms of determining the Republican nominee. And I think that while that may benefit the Republicans in one way, it could also very much hurt them. It depends on who Donald Trump chooses to run. If it's a more moderate Romney, McCain-esque Republican, I think that they could have an okay chance given the current climate. But also, Donald Trump won the state of North Carolina, but not by a lot. I mean, it swung away from him in 2020 versus 2016. He only won it by 1.3%. 1.3%. That was not a super significant margin. I mean, it was practically a percentage point away from flipping. So North Carolina, definitely a state that isn't 100% solid for Trump. He may have won it, but it all comes down to where the Republicans lie. And many of them, Mitt Romney did better than Trump did in North Carolina in 2012 than Trump did in 2020. I think 2016 to 2012 were literally about even, off by less than a fourth of a percentage point. So far, that's where Donald Trump is focusing a lot of his efforts in. He's aiming to primary a lot of these Republicans, trying to get rid of them because they were not loyal to him. Or, in many ways they were loyal to him, but when they ended up voting to impeach him, or they ended up certifying the election results, or they are previous members of the Trump White House that are now aiming to run for political office, President Trump is doing everything he can to keep as much of an influence on American politics as possible. He is going to completely change our American landscape outside as a private citizen. And technically, there is nothing that we can do to stop him. There's nothing that anyone can do to stop him. There's nothing that the American people can say, we don't want Donald Trump influencing races, because whether anyone likes it or not, Donald Trump is still very much the political figure for a third of the entire American electorate. When you think about those who still want Trump to run again in 2024, there's a reason for that. His grip has maintained. His grip will maintain an additional 4 years. Donald Trump is someone who has completely revolutionized the Republican Party. And whether the Republican Party wants to say, we are going to now back Donald Trump as a candidate, or they will say, we are not going to back Donald Trump. But either way, Donald Trump is going to try to exert his influence, and he's doing it already. As he starts to get more and more of those representatives and those senators and those governors primaried, he's going to have more of an influence, those who directly report to him, as they have in the past. He may no longer be president, but he is doing everything he can to act like it. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my post-2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.